Okay, guys, this is Moshe coming to you from Israel and the Galilee. Today's Thursday, I think it's the 22nd of May, and we got a reasonably nice day here in Israel. We're going to have uh, 89 high, not bad, not that hot. And there's a good amount of news. What we'll cover today is one story is kind of humorous. North Korea launched their latest, most advanced warship, a destroyer, and right at the launch, in which the head of North Korea was present, the ship went into the water and fell into the water when they launch a ship. They usually slide it in the water, and it immediately sank right in front of the guy. So it's weird. I don't know what happened, but the guy looked like he was really ridiculed. Trump had a meeting in the White House with the leader of South Africa, and Trump lost it with this guy. This is the guy that filed genocide complaints with either the ICC or the ICJ court against Israel. And Trump told him, we've had a lot of people come from South Africa to live in America because the conditions there are so bad. Trump said, you've passed laws that allow you to confiscate people's property as you see fit. And then Trump showed him videos of black people in South Africa uh, chanting, I guess, or yelling or talking, whatever, about killing the white people, which is genocide. And Trump lost it with this guy. So this guy thought he was going to the White House to make peace with Netanyahu and start over, and with Trump rather, and then Trump laid into him. So if the guy, wants to get along with Trump, he's going to have to clean up his act, which he's not going to do. He's just going to step aside from Trump, and then come sanctions, and, that kind of thing. Okay. There was a shooting in Washington, D.C. at the Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C. There were some embassy officials or employees from the Israeli embassy there. 2 were killed. Possibly other embassy people were wounded, plus other people were wounded. The shooter was shouting "Free Palestine" and was apprehended by the police. So he's in custody. This is kind of breaking news, and we don't really know what his ties and origin are yet, but I'm sure it's going to come out in the coming hours. The Iranians said they are going to nuclear negotiation talks in Rome on the weekend. And we'll unpack that, why they're doing that, what they hope to gain, why Trump is putting up with it, and so forth. And the Gaza war, Netanyahu said that he would only end the war if it ended according to the Witkoff-Trump plan, which is basically the people from Gaza are gone, Hamas is gone, Israel administers the place for a while, and this type of thing. So Netanyahu's playing very safe with Trump, and Trump is again coming out with announcements that it was fake news, and Israel and America, Netanyahu and Trump are not at odds with each other. They're getting along. Everything's fine, and this type of thing. I have not heard much about attacking Iran from the Israeli government other than the standard dialogue that's been going on for many months, I don't think they're going to attack Iran while Iran is negotiating with Trump, and Iran knows that. And what Iran is doing is developing more weapons and refortifying all their important installations to withhold bombing attacks. Okay? And so this is a dumb idea that, Trump has. There's a point in time where Trump has to lay it out for Iran, stone cold. This is it. We want to destroy your nuclear facilities peacefully with witnesses from America to make sure they're demolished, and you don't rebuild them, and then the sanctions will go off and we move on. Now, whether or not it'll bear down on ballistic missiles, I don't know. Probably not. And the Iranians are scared and they're buying time and they're trying to figure out what they're going to do. We don't know what they're going to do. We don't know what Trump's going to do. So that's the big news. Let me jump into the live stream. Oh, after the news, we're going to go through the next temple in detail, like a deep dive. And we're also going to cover the anointed prince and who he is. And he's not Yeshua the Messiah. And I'll point that out to you in a way that you'll very clearly and plainly understand it. Okay, so we'll cover parts of Ezekiel chapter 40 to 48, and we'll also take a look at Daniel 9:24 to the end of the chapter, to 27. Okay. So I'm going to go into the live stream and make sure we got a live stream, which is usually a real good idea. Okay, I've got moderators. That's good. Thank you, moderators. Much appreciated, as always. Okay, I've got moderators. That's good. Thank you, moderators. Much appreciated. Okay, we got plenty of sound. And let me get my posts up there real quick and we'll get going. Some people are going to leave because they don't like me putting posts up, so that's fine. You obviously don't care too much about watching the live stream. I had a typo. Darn it. There's so many typos here. Alright, I gotta do it again. Sorry. This is taking longer than I wanted to. Sorry, guys. Alright. I gotta do this again. Sorry. Doing what I can, guys. Here, let me get going. Boy, this keyboard is driving me crazy today. Let's see if I got it right this time. What happens is people post while I'm posting, and it disrupts the post, and then I get typos. Alright, I'm not going to do the email, just move on. Alright, being a Bible-believing site, I'm going to do some praise. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 Okay, so the shooting at the embassy, it wasn't at the embassy, it was at a museum. That happened, maybe there was an event or something, and there was Israeli embassy people there and other people, and some guy screaming "Free Palestine" started shooting and wounded a lot of people, killed 2 embassy people, and we don't have a tremendous amount of details yet. It's rather breaking news. It's several hours ago, and it's nighttime in America. It was right near the Washington, D.C. field office of the FBI. So this was a bold move, and the guy was shouting "Free Palestine." So, who is he? I don't know. Well, it'll come out. You know, we'll find out probably within hours, or it may take a day, but it'll happen. And Israel's rather upset. It didn't take place at the embassy because the embassy is rather well protected. So it took place here. So the guy must have had some intel, and could have been open source, Mickey Mouse intel, that there was an event, and he went over there, and he sounds like he had a rifle, so he got in with it. Or, well, it actually was in the front, so he didn't get in. It was in the front of the museum. So this is a tragedy, and is Israel going to retaliate against who? This could be just some wild, fanatic, and there's nobody to retaliate against. It doesn't sound to me like it was a organized terrorist attack of sleeper agents, because it wouldn't have been just one, and he wouldn't have just surrendered or easily got caught. It sounds like just a lunatic. So with the Gaza, Netanyahu's telling Hamas that he's going to follow the Witkoff-Trump plan, which is basically means give us all the hostages. I think there's 20 living hostages. Give us all of them, which Hamas does not want to do because they have no bargaining power. But Trump is telling them, we're taking all your bargaining power away. You will leave Gaza forever, and we are going to go demilitarize Gaza. So basically, they're going to throw them out to some other country. I don't know where, but I'm sure they have a way to go with this. And you're looking at about 30,000 people. And then when they're gone, Israel's going to go through Gaza and probably detonate all the remaining tunnels and portions of tunnels. Some of the tunnels are partially destroyed, Make sure the tunnels are completely useless for many years to come. I mean, and try to find all the weapons they can, and capture or destroy them. What Netanyahu should do, he won't do, and that's if he can find 40 or 50,000 AK-47s and lots of ammo, he should distribute them to the people in Israel that live in the West Bank and near Gaza for free, so they could defend themselves against any future attacks. There is talk that Hamas may try to do a swarm attack to cross the border from Gaza into Israel and massacre civilians in like a bonsai charge where they know they're going to get killed. But Israel's not going to let that happen. It ain't going to go anywhere. We got tanks, we got mobile artillery, armored vehicles, helicopters, drones, artillery, and how are they going to do it? They're going to get gunned down and blown up, It's not going to work. They could try it, but they'd probably never get out of Gaza. There are people in Gaza, we're getting videos now in Israel that they're saying they want to go to Libya, they want to get out of there. They surrender, they give up, they want to leave, okay? Now, humanitarian aid is coming in again, but it's not going to Hamas, so it's somewhat effective, okay? So when the people move out of northern Gaza down to the south area or central, wherever they're putting them, they're making sure there's humanitarian aid to feed them. So the first day there was 93 trucks, and then I think a similar amount in the third day. So they're running 90 to 100 trucks a day. And that's a lot. These are 40-foot trailer trucks, or doubles. Maybe they're pulling double 26s or something. That's a lot of food. Okay? and it's coming in daily. So they're eating. They were eating. They were not starving. You look at them. You know who was starving in Gaza? The Israeli hostages. That's who's starving. So these jackasses have molested sexually men and women, hostages, forced them to be laborers, killed a lot of them, starved them, refused medical care, beat them, tortured them psychologically and physically, and they call us genocide, and they refuse to give them back. And this is a war crime. Is anybody going to the ICC or the ICJ and filing against them for war crimes and asking the UN to intervene? No, they hate the Jews. They don't care, okay, what they do to the Jews. They're feeding them. They don't know about the scripture. If you feed your enemy, you're going to pour. It's like pouring hot coals on his head. But it's kind of questionable because the food doesn't really come from Israel. It's UN food, UNWRA food. So now Hamas months ago was rumored to have 6 months worth of food. That's probably 3 months ago. So they could have been, to avoid absolute civil revolt and look bad in the media, they were possibly taking some of their food stores and distributing it to the people. But the restaurants are working, the people got food, nobody looks emaciated like the hostages did. They're doing the starvation, okay? So, okay, now this plays into the evacuation because they're not doing humanitarian aid in the north where Hamas is. They're not building Hamas up with more supplies. Now, it's not just food. In there comes medical stuff, or that could be separate, I'm not sure, but they do get medical supplies. It would be cooking fuel and vehicle fuel, stuff like that. Okay? It's free. Okay? They get it for free. I don't know how you see movies of them buying food and stuff. The mystery of the day is, how do these Gazan people get money? What are they doing for money? They used to come work in Israel. That doesn't happen anymore. So what are they doing there? How are they making money? Somebody's got to be giving them money. Qatar, probably. But it's kept very quiet. I don't imagine how they can have money. I don't know if they're giving them cigarettes anymore. They were, I believe. I have no idea about that. So they moved 300,000 out of North Gaza, then they moved another bunch, I don't know, maybe another 30 or 40,000 that was sitting behind. When the tanks rolled in, they got scared and they left. See, these people are not anti-Hamas. They're we don't have a place to live, we don't have good food, we don't have that. That's what they're against. They think Hamas killing the Jews is great. Thousands of them, thousands, maybe 5 or 10,000, swarmed into Israel with Hamas on October 7th and did horrific things to the people of Israel. Okay, now the world doesn't want to hear this nonsense. It's not nonsense. That's the truth. They don't want to hear it. Okay? So the whole thing has been perverted by their propaganda. They won't give the hostages back, and they're maltreating them. And they're soldiers. They're supposed to be prisoners of war. Prisoner of war has to get housing, clothing to wear that's suitable, food, medical attention, right? Okay? You don't use them as domestic servants and molest them sexually. These are sick people. These are people that belong in a psychiatric hospital for the criminally insane. Okay? Is Netanyahu dragging out the war because of his criminal cases? I have no doubt in my mind that he is. A lot of Israelis are getting madder and madder about this. And what is Netanyahu's plan to get the hostages back? Well, his last shot is now. And what's he doing? We got our soldiers ready, our planes ready. We evacuated the civilians, in two swarms. They're getting food. You're not. And if you stay here, we're going to just annihilate you. So either you could leave and live and give us the hostages back, or you could keep the hostages, kill the hostages, and we will annihilate you. Genocide Hamas, not the people. Wipe them out, maybe, not genocide. They're not trying to kill them ethnically. They're just trying to kill a military force. Okay? Now, with Iran, now this ties to the attack on Iran, with Iran now saying, oh, we'll go to the negotiations in Rome over the weekend. I think it's Saturday and Sunday, I'm not sure. And you see, Iran's buying time. They know Israel will attack them, and they're not stupid, and they probably realize Israel can't do a whole lot to the nuclear facilities. They could try to get the ventilation ducts, which is where the air gets sucked into the people inside the nuclear facility so they could breathe. So if you blow that up and you collapse it, then there's no air, so they have to abandon the facility until they rebuild the ducts, which could take a couple of weeks or less, I don't know. Depends on the damage. The other thing we could do is blow up the entrances / exits. It's the same thing, which there are numerous ones. So we could drop 2,000-pound bombs, which our planes can carry, and we have a bunch. And they're pretty serious bombs. And they can easily take out ventilator shafts. You just got to blow it up and clog it up and collapse it up by the surface. You don't have to penetrate deep to blow the ventilator shafts up. And the entrances are at the surface, so you can get that. But then, before Israel does that, Israel's going to take out as much of the Iranian radar as they can, which is going to severely impede their missile launching ability and completely devastate their defensive capabilities. Then, while Israel is at it, they might very well destroy the other two ports that Iran has, which is being used to ship the oil, because the main port that they ship 80% of their oil out of is destroyed. So seriously destroyed. It's not coming back in a week or two. It's months and months. So they could go and destroy the other two ports and cut that 20% off. And the Iranian economy is in shambles. People are calling for general strikes. They, want to get rid of them, okay? They want to get rid of the government. The government is an evil, selfish, mean government that would not care if they lost 30 million civilians. They wouldn't worry about it. I'm telling you, they'd go to sleep that night. They're martyrs, that kind of thing, right? So, the people are getting that idea because what they see is if these stupid mullah morons, the dictator Khomeini, if he would just blow up the nuclear facilities with American witnesses, then Trump would sit down with him and discuss the end of the sanctions, and their economy would rebound and stuff like that. But the mullahs have no interest in this. The end of Iran, according to Jeremiah 49 prophecy, which it's called Elam, E-L-A-M, is to be destroyed so badly that all the people have to leave and they scatter into every single country where the sword follows them and they get cut off, because that's what they want to happen to Israel. Okay? It doesn't look likely that Hamas is going to turn over all the hostages and just throw the towel in today, because they're not sure what Israel's going to do. Okay? Their claims are not acceptable by Trump, which none of the American regime are interested in the negotiation points that Hamas wants, where they remain, they're in power, they keep their weapons. Nobody's interested in that. Everybody knows how stupid that is. It's just postponing the fight and giving them a chance to rebuild, which is exactly what Iran is doing to America, and Trump has to know it. So why is Trump playing along? He's buying time too, apparently. Let's see what happens. What's going to happen in Rome is, what's not going to happen is Iran's not going to say, okay, Trump, you send your soldiers over here, we'll take them into nuclear facilities, we'll evacuate them, and then we'll blow up all the facilities and you could watch it get blown up. Well, first thing that would happen is they would take away, remove all these the high yield uranium they processed and stash it someplace. We know they would do that. Trump knows they would do that. The idea that they want to build civilian nuclear facilities is absurd, as Trump says. You got more oil than you know what to do with. What do you need nuclear facilities to run your power plants? It's stupid. You got more oil. The idea is to do that with countries that don't have the oil, so they don't have to buy the oil. It's stupid, So we watch and we wait and we see what happens as the day of vengeance approaches. Israel is likely not going to go attack Iran today or tomorrow. They're going to negotiations. Trump probably wouldn't want that. So I don't think it's going to go anywhere, but it might. I don't know. It could. Netanyahu wants to knock off Gaza first. He wants to finish that. And he has to deal with the Houthis in Yemen. Now I'm hearing that the government of Syria is in the process of collapsing. So they're not going to make it. Even though Trump lifted sanctions, they're not making it. I don't know what's going to happen. We got to watch this. We know Damascus will be a ruinous heap, and that's where they're based. But they're coming apart. This guy is no leader. He's a moron, an Al-Qaeda, ISIS guy that prefers genocide. He's nuts. Can't deal with it. What's going to emerge next, I don't know. The question to what's going to emerge next is more heavily dependent on, is this HTS government going to go down quietly, or are they going to fight whoever's trying to collapse them and take over? if these Muslim terrorist genocide militants take over from HTS, they throw HTS government out and they take over, then there's going to be worldwide problems. And Iran may be backing them. The end of Iran is not going to come from hitting the missile cities or hitting the nuclear facilities. It's going to come from destroying the country, the infrastructure, everything. And then you can't live there. And it's going to be done by her enemies in Jeremiah 49. So it's more than one country. So it's not Israel by itself, and it's not America by itself. It's at least two countries, and it could even be more. So that is another factor that needs to be watched carefully. Trump's back is getting tired from carrying. Don't understand. He's carrying a big load, that's for sure. Okay. Let me get my notes. Ukraine hit Moscow last night with drones and caused damage. So, you can't listen to them that Putin is so strong and he's going to unleash the full fury of Russia on Ukraine. It's been 3 years, guys. Forget that. Trump and his jet from Qatar. I found out more information about it. It's a very luxurious jet, more luxurious than what Trump's Air Force One is, which is a utilitarian product. It's not just designed to be a billionaire's plush yacht, where the Qatar $400 million aircraft is. So the Air Force One has a big section in there for the press, which is, doesn't help Trump feel more luxurious or comfortable because he's got 30 or 40 people from the press on the plane with him, right? Then there's another section for the Secret Service where they have a command center and they got seats and all that, and they got weapons storage, another piece of the plane for them. Then there's all sorts of other areas where they got all sophisticated communications in a room. That's another piece of the plane dedicated to that. And then Trump has, we could call it an apartment or a suite in the plane where he has a private office, and then he has a bedroom, and he has a rather nice bathroom, which would have a shower. So, yeah, Trump could lay down on the bed and take a nap. He could take a shower. They have probably a rather nice kitchen, much superior to what you get on a first-class airline, where they probably have a chef that can actually cook there. So they probably have a couple of ovens of various kinds, convection or something like that. They probably have microwave. They probably have electric stove burners, and that wouldn't catch on fire, and they probably have a few refrigerators, and they can prepare, nice meals. Okay. The other thing is this aircraft has um, anti-missile technology. Okay. So does this aircraft have the ability to fire missiles? I don't know. I doubt it. I don't think so. Hollywood tells you that it has an escape pod where you can put the president in and they throw it out in parachutes. I don't believe that. So this other plane, this is what the Air Force said. We have to take this plane and disassemble every piece of it and rebuild it to make sure that it doesn't have any trackers or signaling devices or bugs or stuff like that. They said that would cost about the same as the price of the plane. For them to do it, it would be about $400 million. And it would take about 2 years to do it. Now, in 2027, about 2 years from now, Trump is scheduled to get 2 new Air Force Ones, which I'm sure he had a hand in modifying the features of this plane, 2 of them. And it's probably going to be a lot more on the luxurious side compared to the old Air Force Ones. By our standards, they're extremely luxurious. Okay? By Trump's standards, it's not. So the jet he got probably has a large dining room that seats 15 or 20 people. It might have a jacuzzi. I don't think it has a swimming pool. It might have a jacuzzi. I have no idea. And Trump may not care about a jacuzzi, so it's irrelevant. It has plush sofas and stuff like that. But it doesn't have an area for the press, an area for the Secret Service, an area for the military. It's not all diced up. So the whole plane, you could walk around and it's luxurious. It'll have an apartment where there's a bedroom and a bathroom and an office. They'll have that, But way more plush. The seats will be better, the carpet, the interior, everything will be more plush. And that's important to a guy like Trump, So I seriously doubt that the Air Force is going to disassemble and reassemble it over 2 years to satisfy themselves that there's no, trackers or other nefarious devices hidden in the plane. They'll probably scan it with various electronic instruments to make sure it's not emitting any signals and try to detect bombs, and that'll take a few days. And then it'll probably go into service, which could mean Trump gets assassinated this way. I don't know. Qatar is a bunch of dirty dog rats, and what they say is usually very opposite of what they really mean or what they want. They're a horrible bunch of people. They're dictators, bullies. They're dogs. Okay, that's all they are. And Trump's making friends with them. Birds of a feather flock together. He gets friendly with the Saudis, the UAE. These are dictators. They call themselves kings. It sounds better than dictator. The emir of Kuwait. He's not going to sit there and say, "Well, I'm the dictator of Kuwait." He's going to say he's the president, the emir, the supreme leader. Or, they're dictators. That's all they are. They're just dictators. So it was thought that the Air Force was going to reject this jet from Qatar. But they didn't. They accepted it already. What Trump did is he called Boeing, I believe makes these things, and said, I don't want to wait 2 years. Who has a similar plane that I could contact? And one of the names they gave him was Qatar, and he contacted them. Did he buy the plane? It appears it was a gift. Is he going to turn around and give Qatar $1 billion of military aid? He could. I don't know if he will. Something like that could happen. $400 million, I don't think the Qataris are worried about it. They don't care. So Trump compromised himself by doing this, and the people of America are too dumb to realize it. Qatar is an enemy of Israel, believe me. A staunch, dedicated, Israel-hating dictatorship. Period. That's it. That's the reality. So, what goes on next? Well, don't know, but I think Trump's going to put that plane in service rather quickly, and he's going to use the plane instead of Air Force One because it's more luxurious and impressive. And whether or not he'll fly it out of the country, I don't know. It doesn't have the missile defense systems, but he could also just fly with 4 fighter jets escorting him with refueling tankers, and that takes care of defense. Or he might just use it for domestic trips. I don't know what he's going to do with the thing. I have no idea. That's definitely something that was done wrong. And then after he leaves office, this plane is going to the Trump library. Why does a Trump library need to use a plane? For what reason? To deliver library books? What's going on? He's going to probably use it because he'll be the head of the Trump library when he leaves office, and he's probably going to continue using that jet. And the government will pay for the maintenance and the repair. And this guy, and the people are so dumb in America. I'm telling you, I'd say by the end of the summer, the people in America are going to hate they're going to hate Trump so bad they wish they never heard of him. They wish he was never born. He's making a mess. Now, you're hearing a lot about economic failure. America is not going to have any catastrophic economic failure because they just mint money out of thin air, okay? So it's not going to happen. He can do stimulus packages, okay? He could do a lot of things. When you will see economic failure, but it predominantly is going to be based on several things other than what they're telling you. Number one is war. And I don't mean, 10 soldiers got killed. Okay? I mean, let's say there's an attack in America and 30,000 people are dead, or 80,000 people. Okay? Or the White House gets bombed. Okay? Or warships in the ports of America, 3 or 4 are blown up and 10,000 sailors die. That will cause a lot of problems for the economy. Why? Because people are going to try to liquidate out of their stocks and their bonds and their options and their futures. And so many people are going to be trying to just liquidate and get cash that the markets are going to close. And they'll close for days or weeks. And these people will never get their money out. When the internet goes down, Bitcoin and its likely competitors will all be worthless. What's Bitcoin without the internet? It's a joke. It's worth nothing. It's finished. What is gold and silver coins and bars worth if the internet goes down? Probably more than it was before the internet goes down. If you have natural catastrophes like an 8.8 earthquake hits New York City and 179,000 people died and 460 buildings collapse and something like that, right? That'll cause the same type of economic collapse. But bearing force majeure events and war events and massive terrorism, it's not going to happen. War outside the United States isn't going to cause an economic collapse. The oil prices could go crazy in the Middle East, and that'll cause problems, but not an economic collapse. I'll be right back. So how's Trump doing with annexing Greenland? That died on the vine. How about making Canada and Mexico states of America? Oh, that died on the vine. How about ordering the Fort Knox gold? Well, that died. How about ending Obamacare, which he promised in his first term? Well, that's not happening. How about attacking Iran? Well, it may happen, but it doesn't look too good. Might. Somebody's going to do it. Could be Trump. What about getting rid of the sleeper agents? Before Trump got sworn in, when he was still electioneering, he said there was up to 30 million illegals in the United States. And former Border Patrol people down in Texas were saying 60% of them are single military age males, sleeper agents. That's 18 million. Some people say it's 70%. That's 21 million. Cut it in half, cut it in a third. There's at least a few million sleeper agents in the United States. They're on land that China bought and other countries bought. They're not getting picked up. The Venezuelan gang members are getting picked up. They're not sleeper agents. They're gangbangers, okay? They're controlling housing projects and controlling drug sales in different neighborhoods. They're easy to find. But the sleeper agents are not. And Trump's not deporting them. I don't think Trump even got anywhere near 1 million people out yet. Did he stop the flow of illegals into the United States? I think so. That's worth something. He's now coming up with his residency green card. Let me tell you what he's doing. People have to pay $5 million. Now, it could be they have to invest $5 million for 5 years or something like that. I don't know. The old days, they had to invest. But this seems to be an instant So I think it's a fee. Some countries charge millions for citizenship. This is not a citizenship. What he's going to give them is a permanent residency. Now, they're not going to be able to vote, but they'll be able to have a gun, a driver's license, bank account, and they even give permanent residence passports. America does. Very few countries in the world do that, but America does. So the difference between being a citizen and a permanent resident is basically voting. That's it. Who is Trump attracting? Who do you know who has $5 million they could write a check to America to get a permanent residency for? Satan bots. These are not people that have $5 million. You're looking at it the wrong way. If they're going to drop $5 million on a permanent residency, they probably got at least 40 or $50 million. These are Satan bots. He's pulling the Satan bots into America. He's going to get them to leave other countries and come to America, and they're going to pay taxes. Now, when they bring their money into America from the other countries, right, and put it in Chase Manhattan Bank or Bank America, whatever, Wells Fargo, right, they're not going to be taxed on that money because it happened in another country before they were a permanent resident. Okay? So it gives them a chance to take their wealth, which could be 200 or 300 million or whatever, put it in American banks where they think it's safe and secure, and they don't have to pay tax on it. They would have to pay tax on the interest, but that's okay. And they'll get an American passport, they'll get an American permanent residency, and they could go buy themselves a $20 million apartment in Manhattan or someplace and get a couple of Rolls Royces and Ferraris and, think they got it made in the shade, not understanding the daughter of Babylon. And that's what's going on. Are these people going to work? Heck no. They're not going to work. They might start a business, but they're not going to work. What are they going to do? Would you like fries with that? What are they going to do? They're foreigners. They don't have the culture. They don't have fluency in the language. They can't. They can start their own business. They'll invest in real estate, which is what they like to do. Things like that. They normally don't like to run around and invest in a business in manufacture or retail or something like that, or transportation, because they don't really know the laws and the practices and procedures and the life. And what they do understand is real estate, and they'll invest in real estate. So they'll be slumlords, stuff like that. He's bringing the scum of the earth in. Do you understand? The Satan bots. That's what he's doing. Those are good people to him. These people that go around posting Trump 2028 and Trump, they're gonna wish they never heard the name Trump real soon. He's against God. He's going for the swearing in of the Pope, or Vance's. I think J.D. Vance, he said this thing. He went to the Pope's funeral. The guy's not a Christian. You got rocks in your head to think that. And people are really going to be sorry about this guy. He's screwing everything up. What am I talking about? Canada, Greenland, Mexico. Audit the Federal Reserve. What about Obamacare? He's going to destroy Iran. Do you get the picture? He's just another version of the same jackasses before him, but he's a lot smarter, and he's trying to help the economy of the United States. And what that'll mean is the regular people in the United States, instead of making $42,000 a year, they'll make $48,000 a year. Where him and Mars will make $1 million a day. or 2 million a day. That's what it means. Okay, I got a few prayer requests. This first request is for, it's just one request, for SG, Sierra Girl, and JZ, Jack Zebra. So it's for SG, Sierra Girl, and JZ, Jack Zebra. The prayer request, and I'm just quoting this from the person requesting it, to mend the relationship and fall in love again for their son's sake. So SG and JZ, to mend their relationship, fall in love again for the sake of their son. My throat's dry, I don't know why. Please pray my throat heals up. Thank you. All right, let me check the live stream and then we'll move ahead with the Bible work. There's going to be very, very few people that are going to come up with $5 million. It probably covers their whole family, but I doubt there's going to be very many people that do it. He might pick up 1,000 or 2,000 total over years, so that's all that's going to happen. You're not going to get a lot of people doing it. There's a lot of other good countries to live in, and these people probably aren't going to want to invest in America either because of the taxes. They might keep their investments in other countries, run it through shell corporations, and not pay taxes on that. Who knows, you know. But, you know, when you're talking money like that, you're talking the scum of the earth. You know, they used to give people, like, I think they still do, $50,000 investment for 5 years, you'd get a permanent residence. And that would attract regular people. And they would give them a passport. And at the end of 5 years, they could apply to be a citizen. So I guess he's dropping that, although he didn't say it. How could he have both programs running? It would make no sense. So they invest 5%, 50,000, they'd get, you know, I don't know, 5-6% interest, and then on an investment, they were usually good investments, and then they would get their money back at the end of 5 years, and their residency would be for life at that point, and they could easily become a citizen. It wouldn't be much of a, they'd have to pass a test and, know about American history and things like that, Have some language skill, maybe not, I don't know. In the old days, pre-Trump, they probably let people take the test in Spanish and Chinese and, 8 or 9 languages or something like that. Trump would probably insist on English, but it's just a lot of noise. How many people do you think are really going to cough up $5 million? You're going to find some ultra-rich people that like going to America. They have a $20 million apartment in Miami or New York or Beverly Hills or something like that, and they like to go there and eat out and go shopping and run around. And they might think it's more convenient to have a permanent residency with an American passport so they can go whenever they want, stay as long as they want, come and go all the time, and they might like that. But they got to watch their tax liability. That's the problem, the tax liability. So a lot of them will be afraid of that, because if they get caught not paying the taxes, the IRS could, give them penalties in the millions of dollars, arrest them or whatever, confiscate their property, They're not going to like that. So it's going to get a few people, but it's not going to. You're not going to fill America up with foreigners on something like this. Not at those prices. If he did it for $100,000 or $200,000, he would probably get a lot of people that are wealthy, but they don't have to be Satan bots. But okay, let's go deal with the next temple. The first thing is you need to understand there's been 3 temples already. The first temple was, well, there's the tabernacle with Moses and Aaron and David, but that's not a temple, that's a tabernacle, like a tent. The first temple was Solomon's temple. The second temple was referred to as Zerubbabel's temple, that's 2. The third temple is referred to as Herod's temple, which Yeshua called he said, my father's house shall be a house of prayer, and he was whipping the money changers with a rope, running them out of there. So, yeah, it was a temple. The New Testament calls it the temple. So we've had 3. Why the church jackasses like to tell you the next temple's the third temple, I have no idea, other than to lie to you for the sake of lying. I have no idea. The next temple's the fourth temple. It is not New Jerusalem. That is not a temple. I believe Revelation 21 says there's no temple there. New Jerusalem has no temple. There's no sacrifices and offerings in New Jerusalem because Yeshua paid the price once and for all. But it also says if he were on earth, he would be no high priest. You see, he's a high priest in the order of Melchizedek, which involves, immortality. And when we're in New Jerusalem, it says there'll be no death there. So you're obviously going to have immortality in New Jerusalem when you eat of the tree of life and drink of the water of life. We go back to the garden with the tree of life, the same tree. And the Lord said, let's get Adam and Eve out of Eden, or they'll eat from the tree and live forever and be like us. And God didn't want them to live forever in the fallen state. Okay? He didn't want that. You got it? Okay. So that we see in New Jerusalem. So Gan Eden in Hebrew, Garden of Eden, is probably New Jerusalem, but at that time they didn't have any buildings and things like that. Yeshua says, I go to prepare a place for you. Well, that's New Jerusalem. Then it comes down with him when he returns to earth, and it's huge, and you'll have an abode, a house there, an apartment, whatever, Okay? So when you read Ezekiel 37, it's rather apparent that this next temple is the house made without hands. It's called a house because the glory of God of Israel, which is Michael, the high angel, lives in it. And he never went in Zerubbabel's temple. He never went in Herod's temple. He did briefly go into Solomon's temple to anoint it with a glory cloud, and then he left. Okay? This temple he resides in, as you will see. Okay? That's the angel that in Exodus 23, verse 20 and 21, we read, God placed his name, Jehovah, in him. In him. So he could receive the offerings in the place of Jehovah, and he was referred to as Jehovah in places in Scripture because he has God's name in him. So we go to Ezekiel 37. Let's see if I can make this go backwards. the last three verses of Ezekiel 37. So we're in 26. Moreover, I will make a covenant of peace, shalom, with them, Israel. It shall be an everlasting covenant with them, so think everlasting life. And I will place them and multiply them. So he puts us where? In Israel. Multiply them. You have, be fruitful and multiply, right? And set my sanctuary in the midst of them. The sanctuary is the temple. And he sets or puts or places it in the midst of them. The midst of Israel is Jerusalem, the middle, forevermore. So that temple ain't going anywhere. My tabernacle also shall be with them. So possibly when the next great Exodus happens and they're in the wilderness, the tabernacle is there with them, like with Moses and Aaron. So what's been done once will be done again. And possibly the two witnesses are there with them, like Moses and Aaron were, and the glory of God of Israel. But I don't know all these details. I don't know. We've got to watch. I will be their God, and they shall be my people. And the heathen, the Goyim, shall know that I, Jehovah, do sanctify. It means make holy, kadosh. Do make holy Israel. When my sanctuary shall be in the midst of them forevermore. So, if the temple was built by a bunch of rabbis with construction equipment, you'd think the heathen would say, oh, boy, God made Israel holy. They built the temple. Of course not. They'd laugh at them. They'd try to burn it down and wreck it. Okay? If it came down from heaven and looked like it came down from heaven, that would explain this, wouldn't it? Okay? Now, I'm not teaching you church doctrine. I'm teaching you Bible, right out of the scriptures. I don't teach church doctrine. I'm teaching Bible. They're not the same thing. Okay, let's go to Ezekiel 40. In the 5 and 20th year of our captivity, in the beginning, that would be Babylonian captivity. In the 10th day of the month, in the 14th year after that the city was smitten in the self-same day, the hand of Jehovah was upon me and brought me thither. In the vision of God, brought he me into the land of Israel and set me upon a very high mountain, by which was as the frame of a city on the south. And he brought me thither, and behold, there was a man whose appearance. So what is this mountain? This is probably Mount Zion, where the temple goes. Okay? And God's going to have to build this mountain or bring it up because it's not there now. And that's probably going to be the end of the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Wailing Wall. The Wailing Wall is from a Russian fort. It's not from the temple. They're trying to make Yeshua out to be a false prophet. He said in the beginning of Matthew 24 and Mark 13 and Luke 21 that not one stone will be left standing, so they tell you the stones are left from the wall, and it's a lie. make him out to be a false prophet. And he brought me thither, and behold, there was a man whose appearance was like the appearance of brass, with a line of flax in his hand and a measuring reed, and he stood in the gate. And the man said unto me, Son of man, behold with thine eyes, and hear with thine ears, and set thy heart upon all that I shall show thee, for to the intent that I might show them unto thee, art thou brought hither. Declare that thou seest to the house of Israel. And behold, the wall on the outside of the house round about, and in the man's hand the measuring reed in 6 cubits. Now, there's a wall around this next temple, which is called the house, and it has 12 gates like New Jerusalem, each gate named after one of the tribes of Israel. That's in Ezekiel 48. I'll try to touch on that later. And he starts describing this. I'm not going to go through 40 to 42. It's just a lot of details about that, and you could read it yourself. There's not a lot of interpretation needed or anything like that. It says here in verse 10, and the little chambers of the gate eastward were 3 on this side, and you can go through that yourself. So we'll jump over to 43. Afterward he brought me to the gate, even the gate that looketh towards the east. And behold, the glory of the God of Israel came from the way of the east, and his voice was like a noise of many waters, and the earth shined with his glory. Arise, shine, your light has come, the glory of the Lord is risen upon thee. Isaiah 60. Okay. So this is the Lord coming into, the glory of God of Israel coming into his temple. All right, hang on, I'll be right back. Now, you have to kind of read Malachi 3 at the beginning with this, because it tells us there that the glory of God of Israel will suddenly come to his temple. So the temple emerges before he gets there, gets to Israel, as you'll soon see. And his voice was like a noise of many waters, and the earth shined with his glory. Remember when they were with Moses and Aaron in the wilderness, they didn't like him talking to them because it was scaring them? Yeah. It wasn't Yeshua, it was the glory of God of Israel there. And it was according to the appearance of the vision which I saw, even according to the vision that I saw when I came to destroy the city. That means he was prophesying, because God says, I will do nothing unless I tell my prophets first. And the vision were like the vision that I saw by the river Kabar, that's in Babylonian captivity, and I fell upon my face. That's in Ezekiel chapters 1 and 2, if you care to read it. It's good chapters. And the glory of Jehovah came. Now, the glory of Jehovah is not Jehovah, obviously. Came into the house by the way of the gate whose prospect is towards the east. Well, the Mount of Olives would be from that direction, a third of a mile away. So the Spirit took me up and brought me into the inner court, and behold, the glory of Jehovah filled the house. So he's going into the house. The inner court, they had an outer court and an inner court. And the inner court has the altar, and it has steps going up to the entrance on the east. So he came in from the east, he entered the inner court from the eastern gate, went up the steps and into the house on the east. So the Spirit took me up and brought me into the inner court. And behold, the glory of the Lord filled the house. And I heard him speaking unto me out of the house. Now, it's important to note that none of the other temples had the architectural layout like this, as you'll see. And you could go into images, Google, and look at how they try to show you what it looked like, the previous temples. They didn't have any inner courtyard with a gate on the north going to the outer courtyard. No other temple had that. No other temple had the glory of God living in there. So, you can end it right there. And I heard him speaking unto me out of the house, and the man stood by me. And he said unto me, Son of man, the place of my throne and the place of the soles of my feet, where I will dwell in the midst of the children of Israel forever. And my holy name shall the house of Israel no more defile, neither they nor their kings by their whoredom, nor by the carcasses of their kings in their high places. So when Yeshua comes with New Jerusalem, he's enthroned there as the King of Israel, but he sits near the glory of God of Israel, who's also enthroned there. The both of them are there. So he's still in the midst of Israel in Jerusalem, but he transitions from the temple to New Jerusalem. In the setting of their threshold by my threshold, and their posts by my posts, and the wall between me and them, they have even defiled my holy name by their abominations that they have committed, where I have consumed them in my anger. Now let them put away their whoredom and the carcasses of their kings far from me, and I will dwell in the midst of them forever. Now, the church ain't teaching this, is it? Are they? Thou son of man, show the house to the house of Israel, that they may be ashamed of their iniquities, their lawlessness, breaking the law, and let them measure the pattern. And if they be ashamed of all that they have done, show them the form of the house and the fashion thereof, and the goings out thereof, and the comings in thereof, and all the forms thereof, and all the ordinances thereof, and all the forms thereof, and all the laws thereof, and write it in their sight, that they may keep the whole form thereof, and all the ordinances thereof, and do them. This is the law of the house. Now, the word for law is Torah. This is the Torah of the house upon the top of the mountain, Mount Zion, Mount Zion, the whole limit thereof round about shall be most holy. Behold, this is the law of the house. So obviously the law will change again when the house comes. Moses' law has nothing in there about this, does it? No. You got it? The law is changeable. And so if everybody says you have to adhere to Moses' law, well, this isn't Moses' law, so then you wouldn't have to adhere to it. You see, they're not right. And these are the measures of the altar after the cubits. The cubit is a cubit. A cubit is basically from the middle of the hand to the elbow. Different people are going to have a different size cubit, right? The cubit is a cubit and a hand breadth. Even the bottom shall be a cubit, and the breadth a cubit, and the border thereof by me, edge thereof round about, shall be a span, and this shall be the higher place of the altar. And from the bottom upon the ground, even to the lower settle, shall be 2 cubits. So he's explaining how to build the altar, because we build the altar. But he never explains to us how to build the temple. He doesn't tell us the door is this big, it's made out of this wood, coated with this and this color, and the floor is tile with this color, and this is we don't have that anywhere, because we don't build the temple, but we do build the altar. Okay, the greater settle shall be 4 cubits and so forth, and the altar shall be 4 cubits from the altar. It's just the brass altar, the brazen altar. And he goes on and keeps giving us descriptions of the altar. You can read that. And said unto me, Son of man, thus saith Adonai Jehovah, these are the ordinances of the altar in the day when they shall make it. So he's telling us we make the altar to offer burnt offerings thereon and to sprinkle blood thereon. So the church is obviously full of malarkey when they tell you the law is done away with, aren't they? Yeshua told you that. Matthew 5:17. Think not that I came to destroy the law or the prophets, but I came to fulfill. The next verse is verse 18 in Matthew 5. As long as there's a heaven and an earth, not one jot or tittle from the law will be done away with, yet they teach you it is. That's the church in the Antichrist. And thou shalt give to the priests, the Levites, that be of the seed of Zadok. All right. The Zadokites are very revered by God because they were loyal, I believe, with David. So you have your general Levites, and then above them, you might say, you have your Kohanim, descendants of Aaron. So all Kohanim are Levites, but not all Levites are Kohanim. Now the Zadokites, I believe, are Kohanim also, but not all Kohanim are Zadokites, or Zadok. Let's see what the word Zadok is really in Hebrew. Zadok, yeah, it's a set. Zadok, it's not a Z, it's set. Be of the seed of Zadok, which approach unto me, so they could get close to the glory God of Israel, to minister unto me, saith Adonai Yehovah, a young bullock for a sin offering. Yes, there's still going to be sin offerings. And thou shalt take of the blood. You're reading sin offerings. Why do you listen to the schmuck in the church that's telling you, well, we paid the price for all the sins? You know, they teach you that all you got to do is know who Yeshua is and you get saved, right? They teach you that, don't they? Sure they do. Galatians 5:19-21 says those that do variance, right? That's different doctrinal statements. And seditions, that's divisions, denominations. Denominations have different doctrinal statements. That's like, you know, some say you with Apollos and Cephas. Paul got really upset with them to that. That's what they're doing. Apollos and Cephas, Baptist, Lutheran, Presbyterian, Assemblies of God, you know, that kind of nonsense. It says those that do such things will not enter the kingdom of God. So you could take that theology that the crooks in the church have that tells you all you got to do is know who the Messiah is, and you could throw that out the window because scriptures don't support that. But if you want to follow these guys, let the blind follow the blind, they both fall into the pit. And thou shalt take of the blood thereof, and put it on the four horns of it, and on the four corners of the settle, and upon the border round about. Thus shalt thou cleanse and purge it. And then he talks about the offerings, a ram, a bullock, etc. And it says in like verse 25, 7 days shalt thou prepare every day a goat for a sin offering. How about that? And they shall also prepare a young bullock and a ram of the flock without blemish. 7 days shall they purge the altar. See, it's an 8-day process to get the altar straightened out, purge it, purify it. And they shall consecrate it themselves. And when these, you see, there'll be probably a wall around the next temple that we'll build. We'll put decorations around the temple, flowers, wood, and stuff, and we'll do. And the altar we build, but the temple we don't build. The priest shall make you burnt offerings upon the altar, and your peace offerings, and I will accept you, saith Adonai Yehovah. He accepts you when you're in Israel and these offerings are going on, apparently, right? In Ezekiel 20, it says when you're in Israel, he accepts you. That would mean the pastors that are not in Israel are not accepted, but you're not going to, most of you won't pay attention to that. I hope you do. All right, and we'll go to Ezekiel 45 and we'll learn about the anointed prince. Now, if you think I'm teaching contrary to the churches, you are completely correct. I have nothing to do with those churches. I would not step foot in any of those churches any sooner than I would go to an opium den or a whorehouse, because they're spiritual whorehouses. And they're putting witchcraft on the people and putting them to sleep like an opium den. Moreover, when you shall divide by lot the land for inheritance, you shall offer an oblation unto Jehovah, a holy portion of the land. The length shall be the length of 25,000 reeds, and the breadth shall be 10,000. This shall be holy in all the borders thereof. So we come up with, this is how they're dividing the land, and you could read that yourself. And the temple gets a section, and the anointed prince gets a section, and the Levites get a section, and so forth. The Levites will live near the temple. The temple's going to be high up on a mountain, so they'll live close so they don't have to travel to get to the temple. Now, there might be Levites distributed around the land with synagogues again, too. This could happen. We don't read about it, but it could happen. So if you're going to take the position, we don't need sin offerings, we don't need offerings and sacrifices anymore, Yeshua paid the price, well, you're going against the scriptures, because you can't possibly explain to me what else this means. And then we read a curiosity in Ezekiel 45:12, and the shekel shall be 20 gerahs, 20 shekels, 5 and 20 shekels, 15 shekels shall be your manna. Shekel, the money is going to be silver and gold. This is the oblation that you shall offer, the sixth part of an ephah of a homer of wheat, and you shall give the sixth part of an ephah a homer of barley. Concerning the ordinance of oil, that would be olive oil. The bath of oil, you shall offer the 10th part of a bath out of the core, and it's talking about offerings again. And then we're in verse 15 of Ezekiel 45. And one lamb out of the flock, out of 200, out of the fat pastures of Israel, for a meat offering, and for a burnt offering, and for peace offerings, to make reconciliation for them, saith Adonai Jehovah. All the people of the land shall give this oblation for their prince in Israel. Now we're hearing about the prince. The word is, I believe, nagid. No, sorry, nasi. And it shall be the prince's part to give burnt offerings and meat offerings and drink offerings in the feasts that they tell you, the church tells you it's done away with, because the law is done away with, that's their version. But they do contradict Yeshua, so you got to decide who you're with, the church or Yeshua. They're not the same. And in the new moon, and in the Sabbath, in all solemnities of the house of Israel, he shall prepare the sin offering, and the meat offering, and the burnt offering, and the peace offering, to make reconciliation for the house of Israel. The age of grace was when the 2,000 years approximately, which is just about over, when Yeshua knew we wouldn't have a temple. That's it. Now we have a temple again. Not today, but shortly, and you see, we start up again. Thus saith Adonai Jehovah, in the first month, the first day of the month, thou shalt take a young bullock without blemish and cleanse the sanctuary. And the Kohanim shall take, the priest, of the blood of the sin offering and put it upon the posts of the house and upon the four corners of the settlers of the altar and upon the posts of the gate of the inner court. Then it talks about the first month in verse 21, the Passover, a feast of 7 days, unleavened bread shall be eaten. And upon that day shall the prince prepare for himself, for all the people of the land, a bullock for a sin offering. See, we keep reading of this prince. I want to check something. Church never talks about this prince, do they? Because if they did, they would be establishing that law is still in effect. So they'll never mention him. Okay. So we know about the prince, right? Now we'll transfer that to the book of Daniel and see about him in Daniel 9:26, I think. I'll be right back. Okay. So now we'll put this together for you, and we'll show you that the church is teaching pure garbage with Daniel 9, just pure trash. Daniel 9:24. Now, I've taught this so many times, I'm just going to glance over it today. Daniel 9:24 does not say 70 weeks. In every single Hebrew manuscript going back to 900 AD, it says Shavim, Shavim, 70, 70, two 70s. The first 70 was probably from the date of Yeshua's birth, which would have been 0. Yeshua wouldn't have been born BC, before Christ, and he wouldn't have been born AD after the death. How could it be either way? He would have been the 0 year. The Gregorian calendar starts with the year 1, which is stupid. So anyway, in 70 AD, the temple was destroyed. So I believe that was the first 70. They got a testing and they got punished. And then the next 70 will begin with the appearing of the sign of the Son of Man in the clouds, and we'll have everlasting life, and then which is not immortality. And then it ends in 70 years with Gog and Magog, which apparently doesn't seem to be the end of the tribulation, because it says they'll be using the weapons for firewood for 7 years. So the tribulation apparently comes after that. Okay, I can't explain it any other way. Because if the tribulation was over, we'd be in New Jerusalem. Right? But again, I think it is over. I have to dig more into this, because when the tribulation is over, Yeshua returns, the beast and the false prophet go into the lake of fire, Satan goes into the pit, and then New Jerusalem comes. It's a hard one to put together, really it is. But we wouldn't be using firewood when New Jerusalem comes, because the believers would be in New Jerusalem. That's a topic I have to deal with another day, but I will. So it's the second 70 begins with the sign of the Son of Man in the clouds. The moon turns to blood, the sun goes dark, and it ends with Yeshua appearing in the clouds. The sun goes dark, the moon goes dark, and the stars don't give their light and fall. Okay, that's what it's saying, not weeks. Are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city. Finish the transgression, that's the end of Gog and Magog, that's finished. And to make an end of sins, and to make reconciliation for lawlessness, and to bring in everlasting righteousness, and to seal up vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. The most holy is the temple. Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and build Jerusalem unto thee. Now they twist the words here to screw you up on purpose. They say the Messiah, the Prince. Now, the word Messiah is Mashiach, and that's the word for anointing. It's used 104 times in the Old Testament, many, many, many times, nothing to do with Yeshua. So it's saying here, they're going to build Jerusalem unto the anointed prince. Yeshua is the king of Israel, King of kings, Lord of lords, not a prince. And he's a high priest in the order of Melchizedek, not a prince. That's the prince we read about in Ezekiel 45. Of course he's anointed. In the law, The kings would be anointed, the high priest would be anointed, the prophet would be anointed. So he's a prince, so he would be anointed. And he'll be from the house of David, not from the house of Aaron. And he is operating like a high priest in a way. So the high priest office essentially has changed and shifted to the house of David. Again, the law changes. There was no such thing in Moses' law. Okay? But don't let them tell you that the law can't change. It changes a lot. Okay? So it says to build Jerusalem unto an anointed prince. Well, we know they never built Jerusalem to Yeshua, did they? Of course not. And they're not going to build it to him in the future because he comes down with New Jerusalem. So it's absurd to say this is Yeshua. It's sheer absurdity. Shall be 7 weeks and 80. And they messed the timing up here too. I don't want to dice. And 62 weeks. The street shall be built again, and the wall, even in troublous times. So we're going to have troublous times. And after 62 weeks shall the anointed, it says anointed, Mashiach, it's not saying Yeshua, shall be cut off. Okay? But not for himself. Well, that doesn't mean Yeshua died for your sins. That's twisting it, these idiots are doing. What it's saying is he didn't commit any sins worthy of his death. Okay? But not for himself. And the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city. The word for destroy is not really destroy, it's shaket, to corrupt, defile. The city doesn't get destroyed, it defiles it, okay? And the temple. They defile the temple. The temple doesn't go anywhere. In Daniel 8, perhaps verse 23, I think, it talks about when it's over, when Gog and Magog is over, we reconsecrate the temple. We rededicate it, the 8 days and all that, okay? Doesn't get destroyed. And the end thereof shall be with a flood, and unto the end of war, desolations are determined. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. And in the midst of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. And for the overspreading of abominations, he shall make it desolate, even until the consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. That we covered the other day. You read Ezekiel 8-11, and you see the abomination that make it desolate, and it's called the image of jealousy in the northern gate between the inner and outer courtyard, and you could put it together rather easily. Okay? So their teachings, which 2 billion people follow, are completely not biblical. But try to tell them that. Now we're in Ezekiel 48:1. Now these are the names of the tribes from the north end to the coast on the way of Hethion, as one goeth to Hamath Hazanon, the border of Damascus. So we're already occupying close to Damascus. Northward to the coastline of Hamat, for these are his sides, east and west. So he's showing you how the land is being distributed. Like for instance, in verse 7, it says, and by the border of Reuben from the east side. So you can, you know, get the idea there. I thought it was in 48. Where? Let me find it. Hold on. I think it is. Then let's say we're in 22. It says, moreover, from the possession of the Levites and from the possession of the city, being in the midst of that which is the princes, between the border of Judah and the border of Benjamin, shall be for the prince. See, he gets a nice slice of land. As for the rest of the tribes, from the east side unto the west side, Benjamin shall have a portion, and back to dividing the land by the tribes. And now we read about the gates of the city, rather, not the gates of the temple, sorry. In Ezekiel 48:31, and the gates of the city shall be after the names of the tribes of Israel. 3 gates northward, and 1 gate of Reuben, 1 gate of Judah, 1 gate of Levi. There you go. And it goes on with all the different directions naming the tribes. So it's not actually the gate. The temple would be in the city, so in a sense, it's surrounding it, but it's really surrounding the city. And then in verse 34 it says, and the west side 4,500 with the 3 gates, 1 gate of Gad, 1 of Asher, 1 gate of Naphtali. So those are the tribes, So the important thing is that we're not given the specifics to build this temple. We're told how it works. On Shabbat, you go in this way and you go out that way. Okay? And we're told how it works, how the prince does the offerings before the glory of God of Israel. Okay? And this is the type of thing that we learn from this, okay? But we don't build it, okay? So, what are the common fallacies that they teach in the church world? Well, there never will be another temple. There will. It'll be an apostate tribulation temple for the beast and the Antichrist. Well, let's debunk that, okay, and show you how the church is teaching you pure crap again, okay? We'll go to Revelation 13. Verse 1. And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea. That's the beast, not the Antichrist. That's the key figure. The apostle said, even now there's many Antichrists among you. An Antichrist is someone opposed to Christ. The beast is a one-off. So it says the beast comes up out of the sea. So he's coming up from beneath the earth, right? And he passes through the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the names of blasphemy. That's not Satan, that's the beast. The one the whore rides on in Revelation 17. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were like the feet of a bear. These are his attributes. He doesn't look this way. And his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon, that's Satan, gave him his power and his seat and great authority. So Satan gives the beast his seat, power, and authority. So all we got to do is see if the Bible tells us where Satan's seat is, and then we know where this happens, in Jerusalem or elsewhere. And if we go to Revelation chapter 2, I think it's verse 12. Or 17, I think it's 12. Revelation 2:12. And to the angel of the church of Pergamos. Now, some of the modern English versions say Pergamum. Pergamos is a city in northeast Cyprus, which that section of Cyprus is owned, operated, and controlled by Turkey, a Muslim majority country, Satan's chosen people. Now, Pergamum, which is an incorrect translation, is also in Turkey. There is no such Pergamos or Pergamum in Israel in the past, present, or the future. Okay? It's just not happening. Write these things, saith he, which hath the sharp sword with 2 edges. That's Yeshua. I know thy works, and where thou dwellest, even where Satan's seat is. Well, Satan's seat is in Pergamos, which is in northeast Cyprus by the coast. That's where the beast comes out, okay? So let's get real. It ain't in Jerusalem. It ain't in the Temple of Jerusalem. Remember, it says in Revelation, I think in 11 or something, it says Yeshua was crucified out of the city. He wasn't crucified in Jerusalem. They took him outside the city. So it says where Satan's seat is. And thou holdest fast my name, and hast not denied my faith even in those days wherein Antipas was my faithful martyr, who was slain among you, where Satan dwelleth. So Satan dwells in Pergamos. His seat is in Pergamos. And the beast is in Pergamos because Satan gives him his seat, which is in Pergamos, not in Jerusalem. That's why when you read Ezekiel 8 to 11, you realize the abomination of desolation, the image of jealousy, is placed in the northern gate connecting the inner court to the outer court. That's all it is. But it's enough to make the glory of God of Israel leave, and that's the abomination of desolation. It's not there to sacrifice to, and that's found in the book of Joel. You can read that. So let me take a look at the live stream and see if there are questions. You could look up the meaning of those words. I'm not going to sit here and do a whole discourse on that. Well, somebody posted Yahuwah. I don't know what the heck Yahuwah is. That's not God's name. His name is Yud-He Vav-He, Jehovah. So I don't know where you got that name from. The church probably. They want to blot his name out, of course. The guy who did it in the most surveillance city on earth wasn't in custody. Well, I was told that they caught him. Maybe I'm wrong, but that was the early reports. So I'll pursue it. I don't know. Maybe you're right, and it was a false report that they caught him. Yeshua's name, the root of Yeshua's name is Yeshua, which means salvation. So it's sort of in English would mean something like giver or provider or source of salvation. Something like that. Hebrew doesn't go into English very well at all. Okay, that's what I got for today. So I'm Moshe. Please pray for me and my wife for our peace, safety, protection, joy, healing of our bodies which need it. Pray for our finances. Pray for our animals and pets, which are all rescues, to be happy, healthy, and whole. Pray for better videos, and we get more insights. I get more insights from the Lord on the end times and prophecy, timing, sequencing. Pray for the peace of Yerushalayim, and I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach. And I'm out. And I hope you got something out of this. And you might want to subscribe because there's going to be a lot of emergency updates in the near future. I'm rather certain of the way things are going. Thanks.